Hey everybody, welcome to Fridays with Steve 61. We're going to be talking about custom applications and teams this morning. I have to warn everybody, this is like the early days of some of the digital photography when everyone discovered that they could zoom in and out. It looks like our production platform has added some functionality for me to sort of easily toggle between full screen layouts and focusing on me. And so I'm resisting the urge to overuse the new tools, but it is kind of nice in that I can bring slides full screen, or if it's maybe a portion where the focus is just on the commentary, we can do that with the platform. But I'm doing self-production today, and so because of that, I'm desperately resisting the urge to play too much with the technology. So what we're going to be covering today is applications. So all of us are incredibly well versed when it comes to the native functionality of Teams, chat, files, Teams, channels, all that good stuff. And we also talk a lot about some of the advanced Teams native functionality like phone, like really, really rich meetings and meeting rooms. And so just wanted to spend some time today, kind of give you a roadmap for bringing in some applications, some ideas about things to look for. I may be stretching it a little bit by saying it's fun, but it certainly is a value add. And it's one that comes, and depending on what you're trying to do, at a relatively low cost. And so what we'll do is we'll talk about the landscape and get into a little bit around the tools and so forth. So so many of my stories during Fridays with Steve are, I'm so old that, right? And so I'm so old that at the very first juncture in my career, I literally had two computers, two machines, right? I pivoted in my chair literally between a system that was tethered to a VAX and a personal computer where I did, the productivity side. The VAX application was line of business. And so, then we've gone through an era where, whether it's a Windows desktop or a platform like iOS is sort of the space that we do our work in and things integrate into, now there's really a lot of cause to think about Teams in that way, right? To say, Teams is this environment that I can have anywhere I go. I can get to it on the web. I can have larger clients on desktops and Macs like I use, or iOS or Android phones. And what about making that more comprehensive so I don't have to, proverbially swivel in my chair between applications on a desktop or on a phone? And that's where Teams is really working hard to get. There's also this interplay between the different applications where experiences can be streamlined and made more productive by living in Teams, as well as leveraging that team native capability like chat to go ahead and enhance business applications or custom written applications. And we see a lot of that within our own business, is that we will use apps and enhance them with Teams features like chat and presence. And so, these are some things that you need to think about, making Teams a really valuable platform when it comes to custom applications, line of business applications, and sort of investing in the platform as a whole. Excuse me. I found this really interesting. We switch a lot. There's this notion of multitasking. Turns out, not a thing. Your brain has to switch between things, and there are in fact switching costs. I know that there are studies that say that when the human brain switches, there's a recovery time to sort of full focus and productivity that's measured in minutes, right? It's not seconds. We can't do multiple things at once. And because of that, anything we can do to enhance focus, to give people, that consistent environment and experience is super, super positive. But the problem is that all of us work a little bit differently. If Teams was, somehow your business was about chatting with people and sharing files, that'd be awesome. But most of us are trying to sell something or build something or deliver a service, in the real world. And so because of that, getting those things into sort of a framework where people can switch less, where they can focus more is critically important. And I'm not sure why I'm having some I think gesture issues with my magic mouse. It's not so magic today. And so you can think about this hybrid work a little bit differently with Teams, right? You can create something brand new. I love this notion of the development tools being able to sprinkle in a little bit of something from multiple places, right? Maybe key to your business is the ability to correlate, an email with an Adobe document, with the history of chat, and bring all those things together into sort of one pane of glass, right? We always have had this dream, whether it's Outlook or if you're on the IT side, that you'd have like this single pane of glass for everything you know. Teams starts to get you closer to that. You can also integrate existing apps. First off, check the app catalog, right? I don't know how often, either as an admin or a business user, you're checking, but there's lots of amazing app integrations. And as I've always told you, I mean, what's nice about Teams is that it embraces the world of non-Microsoft as well. If you're doing project management, sure, you can snap project into Teams, but you can also snap in Asana and Trello. And so you have lots of existing apps out there. And then it's also just a great way to manage Power Platform and workflow kinds of things in a consumable way. I think one of the challenges as Microsoft, historically has spun up additional tools and solutions, is it creates a whole new place to go for data and information. Power BI. I love our Power BI reports. I'm trying more and more to consume them in Teams. Why? It's just one less switching instance for me, one less chance for me to lose focus by keeping my focus in Teams. And they can really be, business additive. I would argue that this is where we want to spend our time on continuing to drive Teams adoption, consumption. If I've, as a partner, if I've taken you all the way to phone and hybrid meetings and Teams rooms, and we're doing all of the things, this is that next frontier. This is where, you bring in your business applications. You think differently about customer experiences. There might be business opportunities that you unearth simply because all of this is happening under one roof. And that internal workflow piece. I mean, I'm always, running an organization and being part of a team, I'm always thinking about how I can get more stuff out of the way, from expense reporting to collaboration on a quote or a contract going out the door. Always trying to bring down sort of the cost of doing business is super, super critical to me and my whole team. So we can build these apps very quickly. There's tons of support and supported paths available to you. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about those. The first thing is understanding how your people are using, or I'll add to the slide here in sort of kind of a non-Microsoft way, or not using Teams, right? I think a lot of us in IT, still have some opacity when it comes to understanding truly adoption, truly, how it's being consumed out there. And oftentimes we get surprised. I had no idea you were using it that way. Or, boy, they are more savvy or less savvy when it comes to the tech. I rolled out the ability to create channels, but in the last 6 months, my users have created exactly 2, right? That's interesting. And so understanding how your people are using Teams is super critical. Next, it's work with the business to say, well, what are those big user challenges? What are the the combination of, return on investment and time to market and, financial return that really bring us to well, what are we going to do, right? Uh, Unfortunately, it's hard to find the Dilbert archive these days, but there was one strip that always is appropriate in this space because it talks about engineers going off and building something absolutely amazing that has absolutely zero utility, right? And so making sure that the intersection of what we build and what they need is as close to being 100% overlap as possible. Then apps, requirements and features. Hey, what do we need to do? What's version 1? What's version 2? Can we be agile versus trying to boil the ocean? I love getting, MVPs, minimum viable products out the door, get people using it, get that feedback, keep building and iterating the solution you're offering to market. And then let's build it, right? Keep the users in mind, whether it's testing, whether it's help and support after the fact. I've seen lots of great Teams apps launched with no sort of day 2 plan, and that's absolutely critically important when you think about really bringing a product to market. That's really what you're doing. Maybe it's only internal and maybe there aren't external users, but think of it as bringing a new product or solution to market. And this is why we're talking about Teams here is making it sort of the central hub for all the things you do. I struggle a bit with the paradigm sometimes because all it seems to be is shrinking the we used to have multiple systems, then we had one desktop with multiple apps, now we have one app with multiple teams and internal apps and bots and so forth, and then eventually do we keep shrinking it down so that there's I guess this is the dream with X, right? That it's the one application to rule them all, that you'll order Chinese food and send pictures to your family and do your taxes, I don't know, all within a single app. It's an interesting vision. I don't know if it's simply just taking the analogy or taking the metaphor too far. But Teams has the kinds of things you're looking for: the integration with Microsoft 365, authentication, and administrative tasks, partner apps that flow into it, Dynamics, Azure Access, cloud applications, all of those things. Like I said, whether it's custom apps or whether it's apps that folks are already building. My marketing team talked me into using Monday as a tool for really orchestrating their business and thinking about campaign planning and making sure things are getting done and getting out the door. Well, guess what? There's a Monday app for Teams, and I think it's awesome that we were able to adopt and really start to realize the value of a new tool to drive our business, but it still fits in that Teams paradigm. And then when it comes to the features, right, there's lots of things, in Teams and outside of Teams that you need to think about, right? Is it a tab in a team? Is it messaging extensions? Is it something that happens in a meeting, right? We work with partners like Frameable is a great example, where they make additional functionality, additional apps that go into Teams, and they have to think about the multiple paradigms. Here's an added value application that's an extension in Teams itself, something like Overview. But then there are pieces that are in meeting additive, or in communication additive. And so you need to think about all those different things that you can bring in. Don't just think about it as another app on the left-hand pane, right? Isn't an extension to the functionality within a team or within a channel, within chat or within a meeting. All of those pieces are available to you with the robustness of the Teams infrastructure. And so just a little bit more about those. I mentioned tabs. Bots are an interesting strategy, right? What can you do, within, channel chat or even direct bot chat that says, hey, answer simple questions. I know all of us, I love making sort of the consumer analogy, but all of us are seeing more and more websites with chat agents, right? With I can answer the simple questions. Hey, you seem to be stuck on this web page for a while. Is there anything I can do to help? Take and focus that internally now and say, are there questions that are always being asked? Or are there, and so let's keep with the metaphor, right? Are there times that your people are hopping over to another system, having to go through a totally different process to ask a simple question, right? How big was the last invoice we sent to company XYZ, right? We've got to head over to the finance platform, search, all those kinds of things. But what if there's an invoicing bot, and you can ask it questions like, last invoice company XYZ, and then through connectivity, APIs, authentication and security layers, you get that answer back right within the form of a Teams chat, right? Again, keeping that focus, keeping that productivity very, very high. And so you can see, the personal app piece, I think, is an interesting space as well. I've actually done some playing with custom apps and personal spaces. I know some of us think that there are some odd decisions that have been made, I guess I'll say, about what's available in Teams relative to what we are used to having available in Outlook, right? Yeah, my calendar's there, but man, it would be fun to hop into my inbox or, something like that, because maybe I'm on a phone, or like I said, I'm trying to keep deep focus and things like that. And I don't want to see my whole inbox, but I need to reference something that's in there. And so I've done some playing with, personal spaces, personal teams that do some, looks into my applications and the things I'm interested in. The personal team site is sort of an interesting mental exercise because, again, it's a bit through the looking glass where you're like, well, is it a team if it's just for me kind of thing? So, but the point of this is just meant to highlight how much of this is, truly available when it comes to hooks that you can build into your apps. And the fun part is, build what suits you with the tools that suit you, right? I'm not much of a developer, so I was mostly, framing websites and things like that. But there are, multiple tools and languages all available to you within this Teams framework. Again, I think Microsoft showing tremendous insight and progress from, my early days, really embracing the fact that there's a lot of people that love Python, and we'll just be better off saying, absolutely, bring your toolkit with you to a platform like Teams, because it's meant to be inclusive of all this, right? It would have been a miss to say, here's Teams, here's this wonderful platform, but you have to do everything in Visual Basic, right? And again, dating myself, but that kind of used to be the strategy. And so it's really nice for me to see, and a really great win for customers to see this multi-platform, multi-toolkit approach. And then what's nice about the Teams environment is there's tons of support. There's tons of tools and resources for you all throughout this process. I'll just remind you that while, like I said, I'm not like the world's greatest developer, but I do think I have the skill that every great developer has, which is, before you embark on anything, before you sit down at the keyboard, before you start with a blank whiteboard, you always have to ask, has somebody done this before, right? Does this already exist? From searching the app catalog to, SDKs and toolkits and libraries that are out there, making sure that you're using these tools to go ahead and augment, shortcut, cut and paste your process all throughout. But Microsoft has done a great job of supporting the process from end to end. And so just an example of how to think about this, planning, figuring out the requirements, design using the Teams UI kit and UI library, because we want to make sure we always start with kind of the end in mind. using JavaScript and the Teams toolkit to actually build the application. Do we need Microsoft 365 data or access to the graph? Test it in a developer tenant with sample user data, and then deploy the app to Azure, right? What's nice about Teams, again, thinking back to the very, very old days, was, we used to have to come up with our own deployment processes and roll out tools. And then, there were on-prem and those kinds of tools, but Teams has built in for you, tools to say, hey, is this mandatory? Is this required? Is this restricted to only certain users? All within the app framework, right? So that catalog of apps has all kinds of management capability. If you happen to be an IT admin, right? I think some of us are familiar with, turning on and off the ability of people to see the catalog or install apps, outside of an approved list. And so now you're deploying your custom applications through that exact same framework. And so if you want to reach out to me, talk about application building, I can provide this deck. I can provide lots of great resources. These are all live links going to all kinds of tools that are out there. You saw a lot of those tools and resources highlighted in a previous slide as well. And I'd love to go ahead and provide that for you. So that's our talk for today. Apex is here to help. We're not a traditional development shop, just full transparency. But in the world of Teams, we've really been helping customers, and extended our capability in this space because, the lines have really been blurred. Back in my first days of consulting, I worked for an integration partner, and just a couple blocks away in good old St. Louis Park, Minnesota, there was a partner that only did the development side, and we were competitors in a sense, and we were both in the same space, but vastly different skill sets. And that line has really been blurred. Whether it's friendlier tools like the Power Platform, or the fact that apps are a key component in something like Teams, we've really positioned ourselves as a partner that can help you in this space. Hundreds of customers, hundreds of projects. Super proud of our track record of customer success. So if Teams apps is something you're thinking about, please reach out and let us know how we can help. So that's it. Reach out to your account executive if you're an existing Apex customer. If you're not, reach out to sales. Reach out to me directly, sthompson@apexdigital.com. Lots of resources on our website. Lots of resources from Microsoft around app development, especially focusing on Teams. Let me know if you want this as a resource or need some other pointers, and we'll be happy to help. So with that, thanks for joining us on Fridays with Steve, and we'll see you next time.